We open on the holodeck, with Neelix being given a foot rub, which seems to be the Talaxian equivalent of Ferengi Umox. He's showing his new program, a resort on Talax, to Paris and Kim. They think it could use some work and liven things up a bit with wine, women and song, but don't get to experience the benefits of their work before being called to the bridge. Neelix seems rather taken by it though, so, with a bit of luck, that's him busy for the rest of the episode. It seems we've come across a ship in distress. At least, I assume it's not supposed to be on fire. Janeway agrees and we move in to help. There are life signs aboard, but also rather a lot of radiation, so we go and teleport them out just before their ship kabooms. In sickbay, our 3 new guests are receiving treatment. One of them proves particularly unwell, and after our medication doesn't work, becomes 100% unwell by dying. This is particularly distressing for another of the guests, who says she's his wife. Well, widow now, I guess, but Kez is there to offer support. Later, Janeway is drinking tea with our new guests, well, the ones that survived. As proof of her advanced diplomatic skills, she even manages to resist pointing out that the nose ridges on one of them look a bit like a cock. He tells us they were attacked and chased before finally managing to fight them off, despite heavy damage. This area is riddled with rogues, and he believes they were going to be kidnapped and ransomed. He's a well-known doctor, you see, and Widow is related to the Autarch, presumably a ruler of some sort. They thank Janeway for rescuing them, and the detour we're making to drop them home in a couple of days. Janeway offers her condolences to Widow for the loss of her husband, though Widow says her loss has been made easier to bear by the support and compassion of Kez. Neelix is on the holodeck in that new program of his, but doesn't seem to be getting much enjoyment from it. B'Elanna arrives and Neelix expresses disappointment that it's not Kez, as he tells us they had a dinner date. But Kez is busy giving a tour of the ship to Widow and Dr. Cocknose. Neelix gives her a call to remind her and she joins him, though it doesn't look like that was her preferred outcome. There's some light small talk, but it all feels a bit off, and it looks like Neelix's jealousy is getting the better of him again, as he comments on Kez and Widow having been inseparable since she arrived. Kez explains that she's been offering support and will be doing so until they leave, prompting Neelix to suggest, no, that's not right. He doesn't suggest, he states that he'll help her keep them entertained. It's not an offer, it's not a question, it's a statement. This is in keeping with the sometimes domineering behaviour he's shown towards Kez before, only this time she pushes back. She says she's tired of him inserting himself into any situation involving her, his need to become a part of any demonstration of independence. Perhaps spending so much time talking to someone whose relationship was normal, seeing how that contrasted with her own, has given her cause to question how she feels about everything, and she asks for some time apart, then leaves. Tangentially, while this is a reckoning I've wanted to see for a little while, it's all a bit sudden. There's been nothing in the other episodes of this season to suggest this was coming, which makes it feel out of character. We arrive at the home planet of our guests, and Widow's cousin, the Autarch, sends a representative to welcome them. The greeting goes slightly off the rails when Kez pulls out a phaser and poops yellow on him before doing the same to the teleport operator. Janeway tries to stop her and receives a bonk on the noggin from Dr. Cocknose for her troubles. Kez teleports a shuttle outside the ship, rather neatly sidestepping those security overhauls Janeway ordered Tuvok to perform last season when shuttles kept getting stolen, then orders Widow and Dr. Cocknose onto the teleporter pad. She does so in a very abrupt and aggressive manner, so I'm guessing this is a Chucky situation where the personality of Widow's dead husband is controlling or influencing Kez. They teleport over to the liberated shuttle and leg it before Voyager has a chance to stop them. Looks like this isn't their first rodeo either, as they've done a science on the shuttle so it can't be tracked. Oh, and Tuvok calls to let us know the representative that teleported aboard and the crew member are both dead, with Janeway in sickbay being treated, so it looks like they meant business. Our stolen shuttle is in orbit around a planet. Kez experiences a little discomfort, but is an arse about it when questioned. To business, and the business seems to be war. Dr. Cocknose tells us there are 400 troops waiting for orders, which pleases Kez and she beams one of them aboard. He recognizes Widow, but is surprised by the presence of Kez, who explains to him that her previous host died, but a kind nurse was there at just the right time to jump bodies, called it. Soldier Guy seems concerned with the change and convinced that the guy possessing Kez can still lead them. This concern is proven unfounded by making use of Kes's psychic shenanigan powers, resulting in Soldier Guy bleeding from 4 of his 6 nostrils before swearing loyalty. Back on Voyager, we're having a chat with the Autarch's son, who tells us Widow and Dr. Cocknose are political extremists who probably wanted to kill his dad. Oh, and he says Kes has been possessed by the spirit of a military dictator called Tyran, who ruled the planet over 200 years ago before he was overthrown by an ancestor of the current Autarch. Prior to being removed from power, however, Tyran looked into ways to prolong his life and discovered the ability to transfer his consciousness into other bodies. This is probably going to make killing him a bit of a bugger, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. One more thing, Tyran may have the memories of Kes, but the person she was is now gone. Janeway isn't willing to accept this and asks the Doctor to check the corpse of Tyran's former host and see if we can learn anything about the process. In the meantime, we've found the shuttle, which seems to have returned here, so we're going to pop over and have a word, despite the Autarch's son wanting us to go in guns blazing. We're too late, though. The people on the shuttle have all teleported down to the Royal Palace, where they make short work of the frankly incompetent guards. Seriously though, not a single one of them gets a shot off. Tyran walks up to the Autarch and does some murder to him, then, as another of the Autarch's sons is dragged away, takes a special collar of authority from the corpse and puts it on, making me wonder if this is part of a set, including the Royal Leash of Command and the ball gag of ultimate power. Tyran is doing a touch of redecorating, tearing down drapes and smashing artwork, but hesitates when he reaches for a vase of flowers. A hint of original Kes, perhaps. All's not well in the court, either, as Widow is unsure where recent developments leave her. As Tyran's mind is in another body, is she still technically a widow? Thankfully we're interrupted before I have to worry about a name change, as the Autarch's other son is dragged in. Tyran launches into a speech about how they could help each other and that, in exchange for his support, various positions of power could be made available to him. It's a bold play, given that Tyran just killed his dad a few minutes back, but maybe this species are all complete bastards. Back on Voyager, Autarch's son is fretting about what's happening planet-side. He has the rightful claim to the throne, inasmuch as any hereditary system can be considered rightful, but that's secondary to the loyalty of those with power. If Tyran can turn enough people, Autarch's son is proper buggered, not least of which because he thinks his brother, Autarch's other son, might be one of those willing to change sides. That's why Autarch's son wants to strike now, before it all descends into a civil war. Janeway's not fond of that plan though, not least of which as it'll probably end badly for Kes's body. Instead, we catch up with the Doc and see what he's learned. Quite a bit, it turns out. The corpse of the previous host had a gadget implanted into his brain that allowed him to send his consciousness down his arm and, using contacts in his hand, into the nervous system of Kes. Which is interesting as, at the start of the show, Kes pushes that hand down via the fabric of his sleeve, meaning there was no physical contact. Also, the Doc says this system is activated at the moment of death, which was after that interaction anyway, but let's not worry about the details. Anywho, Tyran will probably want to implant a new version of this into Kes's body as soon as possible. The Doc thinks that once this happens, we may be able to use a gizmo to wipe the implant and Tyran along with it. Slight problem, it needs direct physical contact. Autarch's son still wants to just burn everything down to the ground, and Kes along with it, but relents and offers details of the inside of the palace, with Tuvok volunteering to pop down there and give it a go. As an aside, I wonder how much of this decision is logical and how much emotional. Tuvok is security chief, so best suited to the potential combat, and has mental skills that may help to block psychic shenanigans, but he's also her mentor. I'd mentioned previously the largely unspoken bond between the two, and it would be an oversight to dismiss that as a potential driving factor behind him volunteering. But, again, I digress. Tyran has just had the new implant installed. Dr. Cocknose says it's all good, but Tyran complains about headaches. Unfortunately, that's not related to the implant, and is instead due to Kes's consciousness fighting back, something that didn't happen in previous hosts because they all volunteered for the process. Dr. Cocknose suggests moving to a new host now the implant is in place, but Tyran doesn't want to give up those new psychic shenanigan powers that come with having Kes's brain and tells him to sod off. Later on, we're having a war council and bickering over the spoils, until Tyran detects a presence in the room, a mind he says is familiar to Kes. He moves around the room, uncovering the faces of the guards, until Tuvok appears from behind a pillar and places the Doc's gizmo on Tyran's face. It's taken off by Soldier Guy within seconds though, and apparently we needed longer than that for it to work, as Kez is still Tyrion. Tuvok is taken prisoner with the prospect of some unpleasantness in his future. An interrogation performed by Tyrion gathers no useful data, but this was expected. Instead, Tyrion tries to fight him on a psychic shenanigans level, speaking of the emotions that Tuvok keeps under constant control and trying to play on them, going so far as to suggest an attraction to Kez before trying to seduce him. Tuvok uses the opportunity to attempt a mental connection with Kez and succeeds. She says she's still there and trying to fight him, but Tyrion regains control, telekinetically throwing Tuvok against a wall and knocking him unconscious. Back on Voyager, Janeway's planning a rescue mission after failing to hear from Tuvok. We'll teleport a team to the planet and meet up with some of Ortok's son's soldiers before moving on the palace. Sounds terribly dangerous, but at least they won't be taking any complete bloody clowns with minimal combat experience who are also emotionally compromised by the situation, because that would be a very foolish thing to do. And any captain with tactical experience would know that and deny a request to join the assault team from anyone who resembled that description, because agreeing to take them would clearly endanger both the crew and the mission, and that would never be permitted no matter how much they pleaded. So anyway, she agrees to Neelix going. The planning turns pear-shaped when Tyrion gives them a call, basically repeats verbatim the exact plan they have based on what he'd do in their situation, and tells Janeway that any attempt would meet with overwhelming ground forces. After another twinge of that headache, he tells Voyager to piss off and hangs up. Dr. Cocknose is concerned about those headaches, but Tyrion refuses to listen and shouts at everybody to get out before sitting on the throne and having a little nap. Dream Tyrion is back in his original body, which is presumably why he insisted on having that portrait hung, so the viewer would know it was him in this scene. Now that I think about it, why was the palace keeping a portrait of a tyrannical despot from 200 years ago? Anywho, it's time for Dream Tyrion and Dream Kez to have a little chat. For all of his bluster and aggression, Dream Kez is the one in charge here. She knows she's breaking him. The control he has when he's conscious is loosening, and it's only a matter of time. He tries to convince her they could work together, even using the same attempts at seduction he's used on others while occupying Kez's body. She expresses her contempt for him, repeating that she'll fight him until she wins and that such a conclusion is inevitable. The few days he's been in her mind have already taken a toll on him, and she has nothing to lose by continuing. Tyrion is woken by Dr. Cocknose, who tells him that he needs to find a new host before he's killed. The news is not well received, and Tyrion has a bit of a shenanigan tantrum all over his face. It's party time, and Tyrion has invited all of his mates, except the ones he's killed, obviously. A toast to victory and loyalty and prosperity, and oh, by the way, he's engaged to the Ortok's other son now, so that's a thing. Widow doesn't seem super chuffed by this news, but Tyrion lets her know that it's just a political alliance. And to prove it's just business, he insinuates to them that he's up for a bit of monarch à trois. Widow pulls away, perhaps beginning to wish that her name was accurate, as Tyrion has a momentary loss of control where he shouts at Kez, who seems to be winning. Soldier Guy arrives and tells Tyrion that Ortok's son, the one he's not engaged to, is approaching with a shitload of ships, one of which is Voyager. Tyrion is convinced of victory despite being heavily outnumbered, but Soldier Guy is less convinced and suggests moving to a bunker. Tyrion disagrees and wants to continue the celebration, so much so that he invites Soldier Guy to join the party. Or, alternatively, get shot. We're in full this is fine mode now, and Tyrion is talking about building a library. He also says every citizen must have a garden and starts talking about the airponics bay on Voyager because Kez is still bollocksing up his mind. Things go even more south with the addition of some kabooms outside. The fleet with Voyager in has arrived, and so have ground troops. Soldier Guy wants to get Tyrion to safety, but Tyrion says anyone who leaves will be shot before claiming the whole attack is a ruse by Tuvok, who he believes is hiding as a guard again. Speaking of which, Tuvok's getting rescued by Paris. There's a scuffle on the way out, which results in Tuvok gaining a weapon too. Who the hell trained these guards? Fighting spreads to the main hall, where Janeway, Chakotay, Neelix and Ortok's son are making a play for Tyrion. Pooping ensues, and some more guards get knocked on their asses. Soldier Guy grabs Tyrion and carries him away, but gets shot in the process. Widow follows soon after, leaving Tyrion all alone. Neelix poops some yellow on him after appealing to Kez doesn't work, and the Ortok brothers have a reunion too. Neelix sticks the gizmo onKez's face and Tyrion gets sent to the Phantom Zone or whatever. Except no he doesn't, because Kez tells us he already managed to transfer his consciousness. Given Ortok's other son is the only one who touched him before Kez took back control, he's the logical choice. He screams as Kez puts the gizmo on his head and he's sent to the Phantom Zone for realsies. Which is bollocks, by the way, because the doc told us that the gizmo worked on the implant, not the brain, so it wouldn't have done a damn thing because Ortok's other son doesn't have an implant. Regardless, Kez takes off the collar of authority and gives it to Ortok's son before we leave. Back on Voyager, Tuvok's guiding Kez in meditation. She's struggling to focus after all that's happened, unable to return to how things were. For better or worse, seeing her world through the lens of Tyrion's perception has changed the way she views things, and she doesn't know how to change that back. The simple truth is that she can't, Tuvok tells her. She will inevitably be changed by the experience, but can use it to shape who she will become, and we leave her to consider this as we fly away. I've been waiting for a Kez episode for a while now. This was a welcome opportunity for Jennifer Lien to spread her acting wings, and a return of the psychic shenanigans that we've basically ignored since Cold Fire last season. It's very much an episode that I wanted, and one that I enjoyed, which makes it a shame that it's also the episode where I noticed all the femme-presenting baddies we faced have been sexualized. I don't want to call it a running theme, but, well, we're 3 for 3 by my count. It made sense for Liddell, the woman who framed Paris, as an affair was her cover story. It works somewhat for Seska as a way of forming bonds with first Chakotay as she spied on him, then Kazon Boss for his protection and power. But Tyrion? Tyrion is supposed to be the consciousness of a military dictator who now has access to fucking mind bullets. Using seduction and sexualization purely because he's in Kez's body feels reductive to me. And I can't help but think seeing the actor we know as Kez in full-on murder mode would have been a far more intimidating prospect, and more in keeping with the plot. End of episode.